There we go. So I can get rid of this sticky note that is right in the middle of my screen so I don't forget. And so just to start today, I just thought, well, I want to do a couple things. As usual, I'm going to stop at 10:02, take some questions, but I do, just for the first 5 minutes or so, want to remind you again about the outcome of this stage. The outcome of this stage is for your couple is that they feel like you are an authority, you've got this down, you know what you're talking about. And I do want to reiterate, that doesn't mean you have to know everything. So I don't want you to go into this meeting with your couple thinking you are the great all-knowing. There's a lot of freedom, like I said, when a couple says, we want to do this. Have you ever done this ritual? Have you ever done a jumping over the broom? And you're like, I've never even heard of that. That's okay to say. There's loads of resources on the internet. That's why inside the course, you know, I have a hand fasting thing, some of the more common ones on YouTube and my blog, but there are 100 wedding rituals and they're all online somewhere. So you might want to tweak the language, make it a bit more casual and everyday so you don't sound like a Victorian vicar, I like to say. Most wedding scripts out there make you sound like, you know, just shortly after Shakespeare, the Shakespearean period. We don't need to use Middle English for wedding ceremonies anymore. So they're going to be confident in you, even if you say, I don't know, I'm going to research that, let's do it. And the outcome for you is not only do you have all the data that you need in this one-hour session to go and do the script, which we're going to work on next week, but also you're going to feel confident. You've established rapport with them and chemistry with them. And that's why to the point with the questions yesterday about, well, the planner has this conversation with them anyway. It doesn't really matter. Rely on yourself as a vendor, no other vendor, because they're, you know, what if that planner bails? Or I've had situations where the planner switches 2 weeks before the ceremony, or, you know, something happens with the couple, they don't like their planner anymore. Get everything you need, chemistry, rapport, you get to know them. This will help the reviews when they say, we felt like our officiant was our friend. Oh, Mark's here creating a ruckus. Yes, I'm an English lit major, so Chaucer, Shakespeare, all that stuff, bring it on. My video is fuzzy. Was your camera up late drinking? I'm seeing pretty crystal picture, Mark. So who is the one drinking? Not my camera, that's what I know. It looks good to me. Maybe your Wi-Fi is, you know what? Let me switch my Wi-Fi. Wait for it. There we go. I just switched to, the camera is okay. I just switched to another Wi-Fi. I have like 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs. So let's see if that improves. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Some of you are getting it good. Some of you are getting it not. So I think Zoom throttles the speed based on where you're at. Now, see, I just got a notification that my internet is unstable. So there's power outages all over New Brunswick today. We got a windstorm going, so I'm really glad we could get this in. Okay, so, switch back. Okay, so I hope I'm going to keep going. So those are the outcomes for you. Now, for the next 5 minutes or so, I'm just going to give you a quick update, a review on what we've talked about. Again, just to orient you so you never feel lost or where are we. I want you to know where we've been, where we are today, and where we're going. So also, I see this and I wanted to bring that to your attention. In the next 5 minutes or so, if you have any questions about something that happened yesterday, something I said in the first 2 sessions, then drop a question in the Q&A right now, and I'll answer those for the next 5 minutes. But I do want to get started on today's material by around 10 after, and then make sure we're done at 10:02 so that we're ready for week 2, stage 2 next week. Okay, so Sophie has a question. I haven't had a chance to watch your session from yesterday yet. Should I go and watch it first before watching this? I don't want to send you away, Sophie. I'm thrilled you're here. I think, I don't think it needs to be. I think, you know, you can watch this because we're going to continue from a certain point in the spreadsheet and go down, and then you can watch the other one the other one and start from the beginning. So if you're okay with that in your head, that kind of out of order, then then I say stay here with us. Check out Eero to enhance your Wi-Fi. Okay, good. Thanks, Cami. Hot internet tip there. And I got another question from Carol. Do you ask couples about using an iPad versus a written script? I don't ask that. That's a good question. I like to use my judgment. I never use an iPad. I'm just technophobic, not in the sense that I can't use it, but if the iPad shut down in the middle of the ceremony, I did use my iPad for a while. I was excited about getting a shiny new iPad and using it, but I always had the backup binder right there because I was so scared that the iPad would break, and so I would just reach over and grab my paper binder, and then I was like, why am I doing this? I prefer the binder. You know, I just don't want anything bad happening. Some of you are comfortable. Also in a dark venue, if you have an iPad and the screen is lit, you look like that, you know, the campfire, the flashlight under the face. So you don't want that. You don't want that either. Now, sometimes if it's a very dark venue, you actually do want a slightly backlit screen. You can put your brightness way down. But I don't ask them that because my default is paper. If I think that's good. If you prefer an iPad, you can ask them that. Do you mind if I use an iPad or a binder? Francis, the last question here that I've got in front of me is, do you ask couples for a review? Absolutely. Every wedding, kind of the industry standard is to wait a week or so. You don't want to wait so long that they're over you. You don't want to hit them the next day after the wedding when they've just flown to Puerto Rico for their honeymoon. Remember those days when you could do that? So wait a week, 10 days is kind of a sweet spot to hit their inbox and say, so glad you're back. Hey, did you love your ceremony? I'd love for you to review me. And then you give them other information too. It's not just a review. I would say in that email, you say something like, if you want to register with the province for your marriage certificate, click here. So it's kind of like a helpful link email. But then at the end, I always say, if you haven't had a chance to review me yet, click here or here. So I always put Google review up or Wedding Wire. And oh, there you go. Anticipated my question, or I anticipated yours. I use Google for reviews, and I use Wedding Wire. Some couples they're really nice and they put a review on Facebook and Google and Wedding Wire. I try not to hit them with, can you review me on all these platforms? I say just here or here. And I find it kind of settles out decently. Okay, great. I just said I wanted to get started with the new material at 10 after, and here it is 8 minutes after. So really quick, orienting you. I've got to share my screen. Oh my gosh, Keynote wants to update right now. Okay, so remember where we're at here. We are, and Sophie, this will help you out, the 5 elements of this workshop. Kick off the workshop. We talked about that. How to make them feel confident and good about you. Cover the non-elements, if you remember, kind of who are the people there, when and where is the wedding, so I show up on time, all that good stuff. And then you brainstorm the pre-ceremony. So you say, let's put ourselves in the space. It's 15 minutes of 4. Where are you, partner A? Where are you, partner B? Who's playing the music? Is there anybody greeting guests? Great. Let's imagine we're in that space. Sounds great. What a beautiful, welcoming place for guests to arrive. And then we go through the elements. So we're partway through that. And today we're going to talk about wrapping it up strong. Okay, so there's just a couple more, one more question here. Is the wedding workshop spreadsheet and script your contract with the couple, or do you use a separate one? Is the wedding workshop spreadsheet and script your contract? So I have a professional contract that the couple has to agree to. Again, all these questions are clearly the business, the pro course that I need to create. And I do plan on creating that. I'm putting that out here. Before this happened, I was starting to work on a professional course, basically kind of part 2 of this. This course is teaching you how to kill the ceremony, how to do amazing in the ceremony. Some of you are first timers who are just doing a one-off for your sister, and That's the people who buy the course. Others are saying, I really want to become a pro. And so all of this stuff wouldn't be admissible to, useful for people who just, like a dad who gets the course and just wants to officiate his daughter's wedding in the best way that anybody's ever seen. So the contract question, yes, I do have if you go to my blog, howtoofficiateawedding.ca, and type in contract in the search, I've written a blog article. Or if you write wedding officiant contract in Google, it should come up. So I actually help you write a contract right there. Okay, so that's a great question. Again, and I mentioned this yesterday briefly, right now, I mean, because I have a contract that says the deposit is non-refundable. You give me that money, we're locked in, and that's mine. And then, of course, there are the balance. That's a different issue. But this is why couples aren't just coming to me now and saying, give us our money back. No couple has asked me for that. They're saying, okay, we understand we need to rebook. Let's talk that through. But once that deposit is sent, basically, we're locked in. Contracts are super important for protecting you. And some contracts are pages and pages long based on how jaded you've been over the years. But mine is short. I even have a TLDR, too long didn't read section, that kind of says it in plain English, and couples really love that. But it's so important to get, with a professional relationship, get off on the contracts are about expectations more than I'm going to bring the hammer down on you if you don't fulfill this or that. It's like the couple reads that, and I say, you cannot click through and send me money until you scroll and check that box. The page won't let you. And that actually helped me a lot one time with a couple who broke up, and then the fiance came back. The guy, much to the woman's horror, he wanted his deposit back, and then I had to show the credit card company that he did assent to that non-refundable deposit, and they ruled in my favor, which is very rare. But have a contract, because it might protect you from something bad. But I think the real purpose of a contract is setting up proper expectations, which say, we're going to have this wedding workshop, you're going to answer my story questions, I can't do my job if you don't help, that kind of thing. Okay, so I see some chat here. Okay, lots of good stuff. Yeah, okay, retainer. Yeah, and these are, Mark is very experienced, Tracy, so that's great. Some pros, do it differently. I think we would just all agree, don't go into a professional relationship without a contract. So now I'm going to move over to the spreadsheet, and we're going to get right into that, if I can find it. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to go to Google, and I've got all these tools crowding my screen. There we go. Okay. So remember how we get there? Hopefully you're logged in. So log in to Google. If you're not logged in, it'll say log in or sign in there. And then once you're signed in, again, I have multiple Google email G Suite accounts. But when I'm logged in, my sheets are right there. But I'm going to assume that's not there for you. So we Google Sheets. There it is, Google Sheets, sign in. I am signed in, so take me there. A little bit slow on the internet. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, so once you get there, this is all the sheets. Maybe you just have the one. I created this one, Jill and Frank. We talked about the non-elements, which is all the details. You can watch yesterday's video for that. The pre-ceremony, yesterday's video covered all that. Get all the songs in, do all the logistics of the processional. And let's talk about now partner A, typically a bride walking in's arrival. Same-sex weddings, I've married two ladies and they both came down the side aisle. One time, one of the ladies kind of took the groom's traditional spot. She came in first, and then her fiance came in. So you might want to talk about how they want to structure that. Okay, so I do see a question there, Keith, and I will get to that. So now I just want to move through, and I'll stop periodically for questions, but let's get to the partner A's arrival. And really, so this is where you're going to say to your couple, they're sitting across from you at the coffee shop, here we are, we've just worked out the processional, and I say, okay, so the music has started. Okay, we're back up here. Processional song has started. We figured out who's walking in. So all the kids and dogs and bridesmaids and bridesmen, and they're all in. And now it's time for partner A to walk in. So again, how far? This question here, it's almost always at the front row. So I tell them, you're going to walk in and stop when you get to kind of the front row of seats. There are some times where a couple will say, a bride will say, I have two sets of parents or something like that, so I want, you know, my dad to walk me in, and then I want my mother, they're not together anymore, to pick me up halfway and walk it. So sometimes there's like a halfway pickup. In some Jewish weddings, I've done that, where it seems to be a bit more traditional. I don't know if Mark could speak to that. So sometimes there's like a halfway down the aisle pickup situation. But typically, let's say Jill is going to walk in with her dad in our example here, stop at the front row. And this really is the crucial question. Is the handoff to music, or is there any wording? This is a very important moment that I walk the couple through. I say, so here's what I mean by this. I say, I asked the couple, am I going to ask a question here when Jill gets to the front and stops there with her dad? Traditionally, officiants, as you know, you probably see this in movies, who gives this woman to be married to this man today? That's the traditional language. It's like the officiant just got struck blind and has no idea who these people are. It says, who gives this woman to this man? Where am I? I don't like it. It's very impersonal, just like a lot of wedding ceremonies. So I say, I can stick to that very impersonal, who gives this woman, and the give. So there's two parts of this question that are dicey to a lot of contemporary couples. It's the who, because it's like, it's very impersonal to ask who, especially if you're kind of asking it to Jill's dad and he's standing right in front of you. But it's also the gives. A lot of contemporary brides don't want to be given away. They're not chattel. So I say, I can ask the traditional question, and a lot of time they go, they don't look thrilled about that. I say, or I can ask a more contemporary version, which is, what did we name Jill's dad? Did we give him a hypothetical name? No. Yeah, let's call him Vernon. So in this case, I would say, how about I ask Vern, do you stand in support, or do you support and bless Jill's marriage to Frank today? So see how instead I swapped out names like I know them? Instead of this woman, this man, and who, it's Vernon, do you support and bless Jill's marriage to Frank today? And Vernon would say, I do. Most couples love that language better than the traditional language. But then I hit them with a third option. Okay, so if you're taking notes, just write down these three options that are most prevalent. And the third option is just no question. So I say, if I still see that they're kind of like, I say the other thing we can do is you get to the front with dad, you stop there, and then Frank just steps forward. The music keeps playing, and Frank steps forward, shakes hands with Vernon, and then Vernon kisses you, Jill, gives you a hug, and then you come forward and stand in front of me, hold hands, okay? So those are the three options. Typically, again, this wedding workshop only takes 1 hour because typically the bride will have an opinion. Sometimes she will say, I should ask my dad. Like if dad has always wanted me, been living his whole life for this question, can't wait for this moment. You definitely want to ask, okay? So this is a very important moment for the dad, if it's dad walking her down or something like that. So hit them with those three options. Is the handoff to music, or is there any wording? So here I might say I might write this, I'll just write, my shorthand seems to be support. I'll write the word give if they're like, no, we want to do the give. That's okay, I write give. Is support, I'll just make a note of myself, great. Okay, we want the support and bless question. Or If she decides against that totally, I'll just say to music. Okay. And in your spreadsheet here, this is what I've given you notes. If you want to write here just to remind yourself of those 3 options, you can do that in the master that you've created for yourself that you're going to copy and copy and copy off of. Okay. So who gives, or Vernon, do you give? You can do that if they like the give thing, if they want to be very traditional, if it's a more traditional family. Or Vernon, do you support and bless? Or no question at all, just to the music, etc., etc. Here's a little DJ tip. If I am asking a question, I ask the DJ, don't kill the music when they get to the front row, because you're going to ask the question, Dad will say, I do. And then it's going to be dead silent when Frank goes forward, clomp, clomp, hug, the kiss, they step forward. And it's just like that eerie echoing silence. That's way nicer. All that logistical stuff that has to happen after this moment is way nicer when there's still music coming. So I usually ask the DJ, can you just fade down a little bit? I'm going to ask Dad. He'll say, I do. And if you can you just fade back up when you see Frank go forward, hug, kiss, then Vernon hugs Jill, then they take hands and they come forward, and then okay? I'll talk a bit more about this in the script, but you definitely want to tell the dad not to move until you may be seated. I'll talk about that in the rehearsal part as well, because that's something to rehearse. I have seen a lot of dads at this point step across to go take their seat when the bride is coming towards me, and literally step on her veil and her head gets jerked back and everybody gasps. I even had one dad stumble into the aisle and I was like, we rehearsed. I said, don't move until, so if you can, tell Dad, don't move until I tell everyone you may be seated. And you only say you may be seated when they're standing in front of you and everything's clear. Good thing the dad was wearing a Spider-Man tie when he did that, because then I could make a joke about, wow, look at those spider moves he had, and everybody laughs, which is another thing. Always be ready for something bad to happen. Just have a little, name the thing that happened, because when everybody laughs, it's like a release. Okay, so let's say it's to music here. Typically, the bride will hand off her bouquet, because I like to have the couple stand in front of me holding hands. It's just, I see some wedding photos where, you know, he's here and she's here. There's like a gulf between them. That's up to you, but I like to have the couple standing in front of me holding hands. The energy when you're telling their story is so electric when they're laughing with each other, and sometimes they, you know, give each other a little hug, or she nuzzles into him when I'm telling the proposal story about how it was a disaster and stuff. So having them close is really beautiful. So that means typically she gives her bouquet to the maid of honor or something like that, or somebody in the front row to mom. Some of these bouquets are pretty ornate. They like wrap around and stuff. So the bride has to like take it off and give it to mom and then pick it up again. Okay, and there I have, will someone need to arrange partner A's dress? That is because I've added this because you wouldn't believe it. So many brides say, oh yes, my dress, I want somebody to smooth it out when I get to the front and do that kind of spin to stand in front of you, but my maid of honor sucks at all things aesthetic. So I want actually my girlfriend next to my maid of honor to do that. So, okay. So I stopped assuming that the maid of honor is good at smoothing the dress. So I just like to say that here. Who's going to arrange your dress? Maid of honor? 90% of the time it's yes. But again, I like her to know that I have thought of that, and it's literally going to be in the script. The maid of honor arranges and smooths the dress, okay? So now we're into the actual elements. The couple is in front of you. All that logistical stuff is done, and we're ready to talk about the actual ceremony. It's 24 after. I do see a question from Keith. How do you handle a situation where a couple wants to do something in the wedding that you know will be a problem? Wow. I feel like I would need more specifics on that. If I know something is going to be a problem, again, as the expert, the professional, I will tell them that this is going to be a problem. And as a lot of you know, I have that quick coaching package. It's not the course. So I send my script to somebody who has a wedding like in 2 days, and I get on the phone with them, and I see that a lot. People who are like cobbling a ceremony together 2 days before, and they're just like the buddy of the couple, and I have to walk them through pretty tough love sometimes. Like, that's not going to work. That's going to go very badly. So obviously with the couple, couples trust you. Like, you're the expert. They hired you because they want you. So always be honest. They are the boss, so to speak. Everything they want, they get in the ceremony, but most couples are not going to say, I don't care about the problem you just flagged. I want to go through. So it's about explaining to them, I've done hundreds of weddings. I see a problem here. We probably want to change this around, or just flag that for you. So be the pro. That's the whole point of this, is they're putting themselves in your hands, and they'll love you for it. Let's get to the elements. So the main elements of a ceremony, again, religions are different and things like that. So I am making gross generalizations here. But the way I do 90% of my ceremonies and sell my ceremony and the chemistry check to couples is, we're going to tell your story. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. And I'm teaching you how to do that. And then we're going to do vows, and then we'll do rings, and then I will pronounce you, and we'll do the signing. And see how, like, that was not many things. I start with basically a 10-part classic ceremony, and the parts are not all elements. The parts are, I walk in, I make opening remarks, then the processional happens, then I tell your story, then, okay. But it's typically story, vows, rings, pronounce. It's a 25-minute ceremony. It has all the feels. We laugh, we cry. It's amazing. But I don't want couples to feel like that's a restriction or that's all we can do. So I always say, we're going to get to the vows, we're going to get to the rings, the main elements, but I want to make sure that if you want to add anything, let's do it. Let's add whatever you want in your ceremony. So that's why I start here. I say, are there any readings or prayers from friends or family that you want to do? And so, like I say, 90% where I am, very secular couples, because they found them on the internet, they say, no, we don't want anything. Sometimes they will say yes. Like I said yesterday, we want grandma to come up and read something, or grandma to come up and say a prayer. That's great. Sometimes they want you to read something. Can you read this poem to us? That's great. Yes. I never say no if they want me to do something that's meaningful for them. So this is specifically about readings and prayers, things they want added to the script. Then I ask, who would you like to read that? And then I say when, but typically I have a good sense of when is best. So they'll say, where do you think it goes best in the ceremony? I find, and this is just kind of like my flow rule, it's what I found best, after the story, when you tell the story and what they love about each other and what everybody loves about them. And I always wrap up with just quick comments about today is huge in Jill and Frank's ongoing story. It's so significant because they've invited us here to witness the commitment they're going to make. Again, you'll see this in the script that I send you. We're going to talk more about this in detail then when you actually have the script. But I find after I finish my remarks, we've laughed, we've cried, it's been a great time. I wrap up with some 30 seconds of pretty heavy, like, today's about commitment, today's about promise, and that's why we're here. Then I ask them, do you stand here today to give yourselves to each other in marriage? And they say, I do. I like to do the intent there before we get on to the other things. That's where I find it's best to ask somebody to come up and read. So I say I do my part, my 10 minutes. Then I ask them, do you stand here to get married? We do. And then I say, well, now grandma will come up and say a reading or something. So readings are typically good before vows, after the story and before the vows. Prayers and blessings, I find, are best right before you pronounce them, okay? So if they say, yes, we would like a blessing from you, Mark, okay. And then I'll say, well, where I like to do blessings is right before the pronouncement. Okay. And I would do the same if it was a prayer from grandma. I just find the prayer is best after we've done vows and rings. It kind of seals the deal. And then I step back in and I say, well, with nothing less to be said, it's my joy and pleasure to pronounce you married, or husband and wife, or wife and wife, or whatever. Okay. So get that done. Then I say, are there any religious elements like prayers or blessings? So again, I'm just trying to catch myself. If it's a reading, yes. If it's a prayer or blessing, great. Or sometimes I'll just say, if we had that conversation there, I'll just do that for myself. Like, see the little arrow, like, yeah, that I already did it, or copy and paste it there. And then this is the part where, are there any other rituals in the ceremony? And a lot of time they'll go, what's that? Again, if they're religious, they will say, which would be strange if they found you on the internet and they're religious, because typically they have a minister to do it. But a lot of the time they might say, yes, we've heard of a hand fasting. Can we do that? Or a Scottish couple had a quake. And I was like, what is a quake and how do you spell it? And she knew, she was like, it's Quaich, quake. And just pour scotch in. And I literally had to go on the internet. I changed the wording. I made it my own. I've done a few. It's really cool ritual. So ask them if they want to do any rituals. I like to do rituals between the vows and the rings. Again, hand fasting is a bit trickier. I don't want to go into that because their hands are tied up and they're wearing rings. So that's a whole other hand fasting thing. I have a post on that on my blog. I have a video about it on YouTube. But this is where, ask them, what rituals do they want? We can do any amount of them that you want. Most couples will say, let's do one or none, but you might get more, okay? So again, who and when. If it's a sand mixing or something like that, I like to do it after the vows because it feels like we're kind of acting out the vows. Then they come back and they do the rings. You can figure out that flow if you'd like. Again, there's no should for weddings in the 21st century, and that's a really wonderful thing. Takes the pressure off, but in terms of flow, you just got to think about when does a ritual fit in after they say their vows. I find it's like a concrete symbol of the vows they've made, and that's usually what I say. So it goes best after vows, whatever the ritual is. Now, I added this in. Are there any custom elements like a step parent addressing a new child or vows to kids, etc.? So sometimes older couples with kids, mixed marriages or whatever, they want to do a vow, or sometimes the dad, if he's coming in and the bride already has 2 kids or something. Some of the most beautiful moments I've seen in a wedding ceremony where the dad turns to the kids, maybe they're sitting in the front row, they stand, and he says, I've made a vow to your mother today, but I'm also vowing to you, etc., etc. Super beautiful. So just ask them that. Again, if it's a young, fresh-faced couple, you might not need to ask them, but just, are there any other things you want to do in your ceremony that you've seen that you're planning on doing? I just don't want you to forget this part. I did do a wedding a number of years ago where there wasn't a space for this on my script, and I actually didn't write it down in the workshop, and then I did the script and she didn't check the script. Again, I always say to the couple, please read the script when I send it to them. We'll talk about that next week. She didn't do it. And so we did the wedding, and then afterwards she said, I was really disappointed you didn't do this thing we talked about in the workshop. And I was horrified that somehow in our conversation it didn't make it. So that's why I have this special cell now, because that's never happened again. If there's nothing, again, we want everything to have something in the no blank cells at the end of this. So NA, 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 or no, no, no. If as you go through it, you just want to make sure there's no blank spaces. Okay, so then we get to the vows. There's 3 ways to do vows that I've seen. I've never seen any other 3. Write and read your own. So I asked the couple, do you want to write and read your own vows? Do you want to repeat after me? Or do you want to simply have me read you a big long question and you say, I do? I've already asked them that question, typically up here, about the mics. Remember, this is a mic thing. If they're writing and reading their own, definitely need a mic for them. If they're repeating after you line by line by line, not crucial that they need a mic. It's a good idea. But if it's a logistical nightmare, then nobody will mind hearing your voice and not theirs. If it's just I do, then typically you don't need a mic. Okay, so ask them how they want to do their vows. Who's holding the rings? 90% of the time, it's the best man who has both rings. So yeah, I'll say, is the best man holding both rings? Typical, yes. Sometimes the maid of honor will have a ring, or if there's a man of honor, then that's great. Then you definitely want his best man to have one ring and her man of honor to have another. It's just that typically maid of honor gowns don't have a place to keep a ring. the guy has a pocket. Some brides say, no, I want my maid of honor to have it. She'll just have it on her pinky finger or something holding the bouquet. So that's why I don't assume. Shouldn't be getting texts in the middle of a webinar. That's why I don't assume. So I'll just say, who's holding the rings? Best man? Sometimes I'll say, no, actually our dog, we want our dog to have the rings on a collar. It'll be really cute. My grandmother will be having the dog on a leash in the front row. Awesome. I've seen a lot of ways for the rings to get to the front. Sometimes the ring bearer, it's typical for the ring bearer to come down and hand the rings to the best man. Sometimes the ring bearer doesn't do that. The ring bearer, if it's an older kid, 12, 10, 13, sits in the front row with the rings until it's time. So those are a few ring variations. And so ask there. Is the basic ring script okay? So this is where I just tell them, I want them to know. So you'll see it in the script, but typically I just have them repeat a few lines. I give you this ring as a symbol of my commitment. You'll see it in the sample script I send you next week. But I tell them, I'm going to ask you to repeat a few lines there as you exchange rings. Does that sound good? Yeah. Now, there are some pretty ornate ring scripts. The way it's round and it never ends, and the infinity, so is my love, or this gold was forged in the fires of Mount Doom, and so in the same way, my love will be forged. So you can, if you like that stuff, that's great. So this is where here you might want to tell them whatever. But typically I say, I'm going to put a script for you to repeat in there as you exchange rings. And they go, yeah, okay. This is really kind of me telling them because they don't usually care. At this point, after I do the rings, then I say, you know, with the power given by the province of New Brunswick, I pronounce you married. You may kiss your bride or kiss each other, or, you know. So I asked them, do you want me to say, do you may kiss your bride? Some really cheeky couples say, can you say you can kiss your groom, that kind of thing. So ask them, do you want me, it's traditional, of course, to say you may kiss your bride. In more egalitarian society now, it's kind of, sometimes you just say, you may share your first married kiss, or you may kiss. So ask them what they want to say there. This is the signing piece. So we're going to go over to the table. And again, some of you just want to scrap this because it's not done where you are. Like I say, I think it's fun. After they kiss, everybody cheers. Of course, you take a step out of the picture. Don't photobomb the couple's photo. Take the mic stand with you if you can. So typically when I'm doing that part, and now by the province of New Brunswick, I'm actually like taking steps away. So I'm gone. By the time I say, you may kiss, I'm not there. And so they kiss, the photographer's taking pictures. Photographers love you for that. So then I always ask the DJ, can you start the song when they're kissing? Because I just think that's a really nice, especially if it's a fun song, they kiss, it's like a very Hollywood moment. Everybody cheers and a great song comes in. But then I will lean back in with the mic and say, we're going to go sign some papers really quick. We're not done. Keep your seats. We'll be right back. And so then we go over and sign. So this is how I explain to the couple, the same way I'm explaining it to you. I tell them, this is what we're going to do. So I say, which two people are signing? Typically, maid of honor and best man. But sometimes they'll want somebody else. We need witnesses where I am. A lot of weddings, that's how a lot of weddings are getting away with doing it online in the States right now. Some states you don't need witnesses, so the officiant shows up. I wouldn't be able to do that in New Brunswick because you need two witnesses present. So if you need witnesses, great. Say which two people are signing. If that's not where you're from, then great. You don't need witnesses at all. I asked them questions about the table so they think it through. Traditionally, in Commonwealth countries, the bride sits and everybody else stands. I find that really isolating. The first number of weddings I did, the poor bride, she's like, this feels left out. There's banter happening. So I like to actually put the bride and groom, the couple, each have a chair so that they can chit chat while this signing is happening. Or sometimes some venues, the Algonquin, as I mentioned yesterday, where I do loads of weddings in St. Andrews, they just always have a cruiser table. That's just what they've decided. We have a cruiser. And so you kind of gather around. And I like that feeling too. So I just asked here, if they're sitting, do you want both? Again, some brides are very traditional. They read bridal magazines and they want that whole like, no, just me sitting, everybody else standing. So they're the boss. So you can recommend things, to Keith's point, if you think there might be a problem or something you want a red flag, but let them make the decisions. Who can the officiant give the solemnization slip to? So that is a little part that you tear off and you leave with the couple. Most legal paperwork, I take some. I leave some. It's not a great idea to leave it with the groom. It ends up in his jacket, then he's throwing it off at the reception. It ends up in the dry cleaner. It's never seen again. I say, who am I going to give that little tearaway portion that you need to put in a shoebox or you'll need to apply for your marriage certificate? And they often say dad in the front row or something like that. They'll give you like a trusted person who you give that to at the end of the ceremony. So I do want to flag that there and ask them. Okay, we're almost done here. We come back, the music fades. I tell the DJ, let me do closing remarks. So I typically say, they signed the papers, it's official, they're married. Everybody cheers. And then I say a couple of things for you to know next. So I asked the couple, I want to tell your guests where you're going, the couple, so that they're not looking for you. So very often the couple are leaving for photos. They will rejoin us shortly, I say. But sometimes they'll say, no, we're going straight to the bar. We've done all our photos before. We just want to go to the bar. So that's where I say, okay, so I'll write here, what are the couple doing next? And if it's like going to the bar, then that's what I'll write. So I'll make a statement like the couple, they're ready for their drink, falling on the bar, great. And then I say, what do the guests do now? So if they're going for photos, I say they'll rejoin us in the meantime. And this is where I ask, you don't want to get into really pedantic details here, really high energy to close the ceremony. The bar is open, cocktail hour has begun, there will be drinks and hors d'oeuvres, and the reception will start. See you there, even though they won't see me there because I leave after the ceremony. But you're kind of using that collective we. Let's have a great evening. So this is where typically it's cocktail hour, and I ask them, where is it? On the terrace. Sometimes you might need to give brief instructions. Head down the hall to the left, back by the lobby where you came in. And then I ask them, if you're taking notes, do you want me to give the time of the reception or leave it open? And it's amazing how typically couples say, yes, we want a hard 6 o'clock start. And so you say, please be back at 6 for the reception. The doors will open. Other couples say, please don't say a time. Okay. Just leave it open because they don't want the pressure. So then I'll write just reception to follow. And that's all I'll say. Cocktail has begun. Grab a drink. Enjoy the afternoon. The reception will follow. Have a wonderful evening. Can you party as hard as these two are in love? Everybody cheers. Yeah. So I say, okay, stand with me now, friends and family. It is my honor to present to you for the very first time. And then this is where I ask them, and what I just said to you, I do for the couple so they can envision that moment. And I say, how do you want me to present you? And typically the options here are a new last name, Mr. and Mrs. or Mr. and Mr. last name, or just first names only. So if like it's Jill and Frank here, the options might be Jill and Frank Jones, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, or just Frank and Jill as husband and wife. This is the one tricky part of the ceremony, the only time where you say his name before hers. Because if you say Jill and Frank as husband and wife, that makes her the husband and him the wife. You just want to follow that grammatical, I told you I'm an English major, that grammatical rule of respective order. So I always, this is the one, her name comes first every part of the ceremony. Jill and Frank, just the bride's name is first. I like to keep that tradition. But at the end, stand with me now and present you for the very first time, Frank and Jill as husband and wife, and everybody cheers, and out they go. So here, do the parties recess in the reverse order of entry? Usually I have yes. It's just best man, maid of honor, 2 by 2, out they go. And then where are the parties going when they head out? I really want to tell them this in the rehearsal. So I asked the couple now, are they following you to the bar? Are they following you for photos? Are you going out for photos, but they're going to the bar? If they are following you for photos, where is it in case they lose you? Because I like to let the couple get all the way down the aisle before I send their parties crashing down behind them. The aisle is a great spot for photos after, when everybody's standing and cheering. You don't want their party, crashing down on them. So I always hold the party. I tell them in the rehearsal, we're going to wait for them to get all the way down and out, and then you follow them. So just let's say, okay, follow us to the garden. That's where we're photos. Good. Ask them that. That is how you run the wedding workshop with the couple. Now I want to talk to you about how to wrap this up strong. We have 5 minutes to do that. And so let's go to the slides. So you'll see visibly that kind of like, whew, the couple's going to be, we did it. And it only took an hour. Typically, it's like 55 minutes on the nose when I do this. They're like, that's amazing. And so I say, now a couple things for you before we leave. First of all, how do you feel? And this is, again, that strategy. Transformation is really important, like taking somebody from one place to another. Hopefully I've done this for you. Hopefully Wednesday, this thing felt really opaque and too big. And now you're like, wow, I think I get how to do a wedding workshop. Do that with the couple where you say, we just did this thing. I asked you, I told you you're going to feel better. How do you feel? And typically they say, that was awesome. I'm so excited now. And a lot of them say, wow, it feels real. I didn't feel real before, but you've so fired up their imagination. Okay, so you ask them how they feel, then you clarify the action item. So this is where I say, if the couple is taking a to-do list, this is where, to me, you show the spreadsheet. You turn it around, you say, okay, I actually show them my screen at this point and say, we're going to look for question marks. And I tell them, don't worry, because you're going to see this in the script that I send you. It'll be clearly marked. But as of right now, if you want to leave this meeting on the drive home talking about those few outstanding items, the signing song, asking our cousins if they want to be greeters, and wait a minute, what do you mean you're not changing your last name? If that came up when you present them for the first time at the end, then that's for all stuff for them to talk about. Okay, so that's where you show them the spreadsheet and say, okay, see, there's a question mark here, here, here. So you'll see it, and some, like I say, some couples are very fastidiously saying, I want to leave the meeting with this on a notepad, and others just say, great, we'll see it on the script, not worried, and we'll get that to you really soon. This is where you promise that so explain to them what happens next. So I always leave the meeting saying, you're going to get this script from me. I try to do it the next day. I know for some of you that might be a little bit too intense, but I say, by tomorrow, I'm taking this data and I'm turning it into a movie script, and you'll see your outstanding items. So you'll get that link from me, and you can share it with your planner, with anybody who you think might need it. And that's where I say I love showing up to a wedding rehearsal, and the planner has our script on her or his clipboard, even though I've never met the planner yet. So promise them their script and say it's going to be shareable with whoever you want. And then I say, you're going to get your survey, the questions that I'm going to use to build your story. Again, this is week 3. We're going to learn this. But you're telling your couple, you're going to get the script from me, you're going to get your survey from me, and this is where I give them a little bit of guidance. The secret to making this story amazing with my Unboring Officiant system is they each get a survey. It's the same link, but you just say, I want you to each fill it out separately. So don't have a drink one night and reminisce together. I want both sides of the story. I want the first impression, his first impression, and her first impression, the first separately. And then the first date, 2 very different sides of the story. And then the proposal, hugely different sides of the story. The one proposing versus the one being proposed to couldn't be more different. So I say, you don't need to write a novel, so don't be crazy. Don't focus on the flowery language. That's what you're paying me for. That's my job. But do give me more than bullet points. So I say it's somewhere between a novel and bullet points, and just tell me what happened and how you felt. I like to focus on that. And again, this stuff is in the form I'm going to give you guys. So don't worry, you don't have to remember this, but I just want to put that in your orbit now, where when you're wrapping up, just tell them, tell me what happened, how you felt. There'll be instructions in the survey that I send you. Don't feel too much pressure to write a novel, a flowery thing, but please give me more than bullet points, okay? Because the more you give me, the better the story I can write. Okay, 1:49 my time, 49 minutes after the hour. I think we made it through. Now, let's hit some questions. I'm going to stop sharing that. Okay, any questions now? Hopefully you feel like you have got this. You can walk your couple through this. What are you thinking now? Okay, so I have a question from Marnie. Marnie, do you send the entire script, including their love story? Great question, Marnie. I never send the couple the love story. Not a single couple wedding I've ever done. the couple sees the story ahead of time. That is too scary for some officiants. I understand that. And some couples, I just think the number of reviews I have, the couples come to me trusting me. But even if it's your first time, and that's the thing, that's a good thing about that coaching program, and even just have running the course for years now, most of the time your couple will trust you. You might get a really detail-oriented, control-bent couple who says, no, we want to see every word first. But the magic, when they are when they're hearing the story for the first time and reacting to it in real time, and the guests are watching them react to the story and hearing it, it's just this magical energy that just makes you want to almost burst into tears the whole time. It's just so awesome. So I always tell the couple, I'm going to send you the entire script. You're going to see every word except the story. Okay. And most of them say, oh yeah, no, we don't want to see it. It's going to be so exciting to hear it along for the first time with our guests. And, you know, I love that before the ceremony, when the bride, I go and say, are you ready? And she says, I can't wait to get out there and hear you tell the story. That's amazing. Like, and that's, again, that's ultimately why I'm teaching this to the world, because how many people are excited for the ceremony, for what's going to happen in the ceremony. So it's awesome when the couple are not only excited to say their vows and promise their lives to each other, but to hear their story and have everyone else hear it too. Okay. It's a long-winded answer, but I guess I'm saying it's up to you. It takes courage to tell your couple to trust you, but it's ultimately well worth it. What's in your script? How much info do you give them? So the script, good question. I always have like a preamble, and you'll see it. I'm sending it to you next week. It's like a few words, like, well, here they are. They're perfect for each other. Can I get an amen? This is after the processional. Everybody says, yeah. And then I say, but how did we get here today? How did these two people fall in love and choosing to spend the rest of their lives with each other? And that's in the script that they see. And then I just put this is your story part, story writing in progress. And then they don't see any of that until, do you stand here today to give yourselves to each other in marriage? We do. So that whole section where you tell their story, what they love about each other and what their friends and family love about them, those surveys you send out, they don't see any of that. And that's why it's so emotionally charged. That was a good question, Judy. So they see everything except that 10-minute gap, basically. Okay. Marnie, it's your first time this Sunday. You have, but I just can't do it. You have to include the story. Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope, I hope that you can pull it together. Maybe you want to email me with the forms, but that's like 2 days. So I hope you've got some information so far. Keith, who gets a copy of the script besides the couple? I only send it to the couple, and then it's shareable. So I will show you how to do that in the Google Doc settings. And I say it's up to you if you want to share it with your DJ. Typically, it's just the planner who wants to see it, and so it's all theirs to share. Okay. Glenn, do your fees adjust if a couple wants a very basic ceremony with limited elements? So I don't do that. I think it's a good idea for officiants to do that. I just, if any couple says, we want to do a wedding, we don't want our story, we don't want, I say, I literally have a template that I copy and paste because I do get some of those questions. I try to make everything about my branding. If you go to my website, unboringwedding.com, I want my branding to scream, your wedding is going to be fun. It's going to have your story. I don't offer different a la carte options on my website. I want my branding to, and this is what good branding does, to sift out the kind of customer I don't want. Not every customer is your customer, whether that's low end or high end. Think of any product. And so just for me, I love what I do, telling the story, the laughing, the crying, the big show. That's just, Are you surprised at that? Like, I love kind of performing that, quote unquote. I love writing the story. I get emotional when I'm writing the story, figuring out how to say it the best way. If you're starting out, or if you're kind of in a bigger market, I don't know. Most of the officiants I know have an elopement package, a no story package, a story package. I'm booked solid. And this is the thing, when I was just getting known, I started to kind of kick myself because I would get booked for like a $200 elopement package. And then sure enough, I'd get an inquiry for the same date, the same time, for a $750, $800 wedding. But geez, I'm booked for a $200 elopement. So I had to say no. And so even just practically and economically, it became a bad idea. So you're going to have to figure out starting out, do you want to offer that a la carte, different range of services? If so, put it on your website. Elopement 300, basic ceremony, or classic ceremony. I don't like using the word basic. Classic ceremony 500, unboring wedding ceremony 800, 900, whatever. Okay, it's a great question. All right, it's 4 minutes to the hour. This is your last chance to get a few questions in. I have no idea what's been going on in the chat. Loads of awesome, chunky paragraphs that if I read this, you'll just be sitting here watching me read. If you have any more direct questions, pop them in the Q&A box. Barring that, that is it for stage one. So you've had your planning session with your couple, and next week we do the work that I do in 24 hours. The next day, just my process, because I have so many weddings, I like to get that fired off out of my hair right away. And I will kind of flag you, just for the purposes of teaching this course, I send the script and the survey in the same email to them. Now we're doing script week 2, survey week 3. So we had to separate those out. But for me, and after you learn this, you might want to consider that, doing the script, getting that done, reserving that, and then doing the stuff we're going to learn in step 3, which really only takes a few minutes. Copy and paste the survey I'm going to send you. You make your own copy like we did with the spreadsheet, and you literally just copy and paste a link and send it to your couple, and their answers come in. So I'm going to show you how to do all that. Next week and the week after are going to be shorter. We probably only need 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. I think most of you are probably saying, thank goodness. But those are more technical steps. I will review a lot of the nitty gritty in the script. When you see the script, it'll probably make a bit more flowy sense next week than just a spreadsheet. A few questions here. A lot of wedding reception speeches include some of the love story elements. How do you make sure? Great question. So the couple typically doesn't care. So there is that, Wendy, where the couple, if you start getting a reputation of telling a killer love story, the couple wants their ceremony to take priority over drunk friend standing up there and giving a kind of half-assed speech. So there is that, where you're going to tell the story. You will tell the story better than anyone else can. But sometimes at the reception, I have a best man come up to me and be like, I hear you're stealing my thunder for tomorrow. And I always object. I say, no, I'm not. I'm only telling the story of how they met, what their first date was like, and what their proposal was like. You, friend or parent, you were around that stuff. You have an insight into that nobody else does. So in a way, I think it enhances the speeches of the more savvy person who sits down and actually puts some time into it. The sister, I'm never at these receptions, but I do hear couples, like sometimes they get back to me and say, my sister told an amazing story filling in the gaps around the proposal that you told in the ceremony. So long story short, I don't think we're competing with those people, because they're typically not going to tell a love story. They're going to tell stories about that trip they were on and, other parts of their relationship. They've been together for years typically, and you're only telling those 3 panels of their relationship. They have a lot more that they can fill in. Yvette says, are we able to use Unboring Wedding for our promotion, as this is your brand? That's a tricky question. I don't mind that you'd say, your wedding will be unboring. Please don't copy my website or my logo or that kind of thing. But you can use the word. I don't have a trademark on the word Unboring as a brand. I do, but please, by all means. And this is where I'm saying I'm really considering having a professional course that teaches you kind of how to get clients, how to have that chemistry check meeting, contract stuff, and then even a page of graduates. I would really like to do that, but I don't want to start an Officiant farm where I take a percentage of people who work for me. I've never wanted to do that. I want to empower you. I want you to go out and do awesome things on your own. So, it's a tricky one. Please don't copy me directly, but I don't mind you saying, you want your wedding to be unboring? Okay, so Cami asked the same question. Unboring wedding. The thing is, most of the time if you put unboring wedding on a website, I've worked really hard for it to come up. Have you ever had a parent ask for a copy of the story prior to wedding? Wow, no, I've never ever had that. I've never had anyone want to, and typically the couple are the fiercest guardians. They know it's going to be awesome and they don't want to spoil that amazing time that everyone is going to have. So if you can, show no one the story. But I do have friends who are officiants that say, I can't believe you do that. It's asking for refund nightmares or angry couples who didn't like the story, or that has never happened to me even once. So maybe that's just a bigger fear than a reality. If you're tasteful, if you just focus on those three things, and I always tell the couple, this is not going to be a roast. Like, there will be some maybe slightly embarrassing moments that they have told me, so they have permission, like they're essentially giving me permission. No groom minds laughing at himself when he screwed up the proposal or something like that. It's wonderful. Everybody's laughing and crying in that. So there you go. Yeah, so just say you're an unboring wedding graduate. Yeah, I have no problem. And that's where I say, I don't want to take up your time thinking about this, but I'm thinking of a way to maybe vet some people and have a page where I can recommend you. If you've done a few weddings, you're getting those rave reviews, you're getting pictures like this, I am totally happy to endorse you and say, not only have you taken the course, but you can clearly execute. But that's a conversation for another day. It is 2 minutes after the hour. Thanks for your ideas, Cami, Marnie. Yep, I know. I need to get on that. But right now, I just want to teach anybody who wants, a one-off person, a pro, a dad. We've got all people in this group who are in different situations of, no, I don't need any of that pro stuff. I'm just officiating for my buddy or my sister or something like that. So there you go. Stage one, you have it. I'm going to send you, as usual, an email with the recording from today, all the links from this week, and the new link for Wednesday's webinar for stage 2. Create a clear script. And if it felt like drinking from the fire hose today, I totally understand that. Today and the previous 2 days where you're just like, so much information. When we put that data in the script, and we're going to do that together in real time, it's going to be a great refresher for you. Remember the vow thing. Remember, this is where a ritual goes best. This is where a reading goes best. This is how you close the ceremony with a bang. It's going to be kind of refreshing and repeating the things that we said here today. So not repetition, but a very helpful review in a different format for you to wrap your head around this system. Okay? Thanks so much, everyone, for attending. I'm so glad so many of you can make it live, but I know a lot of you are watching this on replay, and I cannot wait to see you next Wednesday at the same time. Thanks for attending. Thanks for giving this your time. It means a lot to me. And as we always say, be well. You're going to get an email from me. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. All that good stuff. Be safe. Keep others safe. Can't wait for next week. Have a good one.